to Requesting Good Company.
Welcome.
This is our first installment of our new series of career development, where we highlight different opportunities. Today we have Dustin Robinson, who was my realtor, who helped me and my wife find our location, our home, our nest egg. Stay with us on this journey as we travel through multiple careers, and hopefully you learn something.
Hopefully help you all. Maybe somebody's out there been looking for career development, career change. Maybe realty is something you've been thinking about. Maybe it's something you want to do in your home life. Well, stay tuned. We got a sniper for you.
Dustin, I appreciate having you with us today. We want to start this conversation about growing our community and helping others see career paths that they might see other people do and wonder how can I get into this. So I appreciate you being on here, being my realtor, being my guy, helping me find our home. So I kind of just want to ask the question of like how you became a realtor in the first place. Like, how did it all pan out for you to become the successful realtor that you are today?
Yeah. I mean, becoming the realtor just, again, if I go back kind of even further, I mean, I used to work with my uncle, who managed apartments off 6 Mile in Breckenridge. And when I was working with him, I would help him with the management of the property, but then we would also go in and do renovations of the property. He was showing me how to do a lot of things, how to change plumbing, how to change electrical, how to do, drywall and painting and all these things. And so that's kind of like maybe my first taste of it at that time. And then when my wife and I, started looking for a house for our first house, that really kind of got me just interested in real estate again. And just the realtor that we had, I was just so impressed. He knew, like, I thought my dad knew a lot about houses, and he does, but like this realtor, he knew everything about houses. And I was like, man, that is just awesome. Like, how does he know so much about houses? And so when it came to the time where I was trying to make a decision on what career I was going to go in, what I was going to be, real estate just really seemed to fit my personality, seemed to fit where I was in life. And then, but, to where I'm at now, the way that, there was growth. I mean, for one, the Lord is very kind. He's been very kind and blessed us, but he also blesses hard work. He blesses putting in the time, because this wasn't me working 3 hours a week, right? I mean, this is me working 60 hours a week, taking whatever deal I could get. It didn't matter if it was a $7,000 house. It didn't matter the price of it. It didn't matter who it was. It was like, hey, I'm going to take it because this is what I'm in business to do.
Do you think whatever happened to you at the pawn shop, if that wouldn't have pushed you into that uncomfortableness, that you would have took this route?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, so I kind of do want to give maybe the full story of the pawn shop thing at the end, because I was a pretty new Christian. Maybe I had been saved for about a year and a half when I was working at this pawn shop with these two pretty young guys who owned it. And they claimed to be Christians as well. And they came in one day and then they said, hey, we want to talk to you about the business. And I'm like, okay. And he was like, the older brother was like, hey, I had a dream last night. And I'm like, okay, what's the dream? He's like, God told me it's time for you to move on. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. He's like, I don't know either. But he just told me it's time for you to move on. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna take the rest of the day off today, guys, and I'm gonna come back tomorrow and see if you still feel that way. Okay,
If God's still talking.
Yeah, God's still talking to you or not. And so like I left that day. I went to Churchill Downs. They had some like event or something. I just kind of went there to clear my head. I didn't know what else to really do, and I was just like, what am I gonna do? Because I didn't really have any backup plan at that point. I had left a more secure job to kind of go to the pawn shop with these two guys, and then but real estate kind of, I was like, man, I've kind of had that itch a little bit to get into real estate, see what it's all about. And so I did that, and I kind of looked into it that night online and said, what does it take to get your real estate license? And what it took was getting the licensing done, which at that time was only 48 hours of like classwork, which really isn't that much, right? Now it's 96. So they have doubled the requirement, and there's now post licensing education that I'm grandfathered into that I don't have to take, thankfully. So, but yeah, so I went in the next day to those guys. I just said, hey, because I actually had a small portion of the business, like I owned a small portion of the business, and I said, hey, if you guys just pay me out the rest of the year, I'm not going to work. You can have back the portion of the business that I have, and we'll call it even. So they were able to pay me out the rest of the year. Like I said, I was still hustling on the side too. And then I just was like, all right, I need to hustle and get my real estate license because when people get their license, generally speaking, they don't make their first sale for 6 months. It takes a pretty good long time to kind of get in because there's so many people that get into real estate and then get out.
Mm-hmm.
And so people were scared to commit to somebody because they're like, oh yeah, my uncle was a realtor, my cousin was a realtor, my best friend was a realtor, and that they didn't last. And so it's hard for people to give you that trust until you're in there for a decent amount of time so they know that you really, know what you're talking about and serious about it.
So the turnover rate in real estate sounds like it's a high turnover rate.
Mhm.
And there's a few people who will sit there and stick it out.
Yeah, so the statistics are that 4 out of 5 people won't be in the business after 2 years, right? So if you started today, you have an 80% chance of not making it 2 years. And then, once you make it 2 years, out of those people who make it past 2 years, only about 50% of them are in it after 7 years, right? Because a lot of people go through just a burnout or go through like this job is hard. There's a lot of hours you have to put in that's on holidays, that's at nights and weekends and things like that. So if you're trying to have a family, you're trying to do those things, it can be difficult to navigate and to balance those things.
After being in this in nearly a decade, um, what do you think the cause of that is? Do you think it's the company, or is it's just in real estate? That's just how it is.
Or the drive of the person, or if it's the individual. What do you,
Well, I think the barrier to entry into into real estate is pretty low. Like I said, it's only 96 class hours. So I think a lot of people see that and they say, hey, there's not a huge cost to it. To get going, it would cost you, schooling, licensing, everything about 2,500 bucks. Right. So you're going, hey, I can basically try to go run a business for $2,500 in a month or two of schooling or something. Right. So you have that pretty low barrier to entry. I think this is what the cause is. But even Semonin, who has almost 500 agents, who trains better than anybody, who teaches better than anybody, who has been around for a long time, we're not much better than the market. We're about 75% of people who don't make it past 2 years. So we're about 5% better than the market, which so even still though, I think that it's just the how easy it is to get in and how hard it actually is to make money.
so that kind of leads me into the next question of like, what does a day to day look like for you as a realtor? Like, I know there's long nights because
Yeah.
we've had multiple conversations at 4 a.m. talking about, hey,
Yeah.
this house sending you this house all hours of nights. I know he's looking at his phone like, Avery, if you don't quit sending me messages,
He just got that house fever we was talking about. Like,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Avery definitely had that house fever for sure. But no, I mean, again, I mean, I understand it and I want to respect people of that because I've gotten it. I know what it feels like. And I want to try to respond to them, as quickly as I can. But I mean, the day-to-day life of a realtor, if you're a pretty busy realtor, I mean, if you're selling, 30 homes a year or more, then your day-to-day is looking like, there might be an inspection, there might be an appraisal or something that you have to be a part of. You're showing houses, you might be going on a listing appointment, you might be meeting contractors. So it's a lot of when you go into closings, you're out a lot. I mean, you're in the car a lot. It's hard not to get McDonald's. Okay. I mean, it's just hard like to actually have a good routine of eating and throughout the day. Now, that's when you're working like in your business, right? But then you got to work on your business, which is advertising yourself because you are the product, you are the service, right? Like I work for Semonin, sure, and Semonin does offer certain benefits of being there, but you didn't work with me because I worked for Semonin. You worked with me because it was a referral from somebody you liked and trusted. And so I am the product and I am the service. And so you have to sell yourself that way. And so you have to figure out how to do that. And a lot of people have really struggled with that too, because that means that they got to call somebody. Some people just like, I don't even want to pick up the phone and call somebody and see how they're doing. I mean, for me, I'm like, because I'm a little extroverted, it's a little easier for me. I'm from Louisville, so I have a database already kind of set up here and just people that I can call upon. But some people try to get into real estate and they just moved here. They don't know anybody, and that's really hard to do.
How difficult was it to get people to trust you when you first got started? How did you balance that in 2014, like when you first got into this, with people, having that hesitance of it?
Yeah, I mean, so when I first started, my very first deal was I walked into a Cash America pawn because, like I said, I used to buy video games and stuff from them and then sell it on eBay. And I had my name badge on, it said Semonin, and I'm talking to the manager, buying, I'm checking out. And he goes, "Oh, you're a realtor." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Good, because I need to sell my house. You want to come check it out tonight?" And that was it. That was my first deal. Just so happened to walk in and meet this guy, right? The second deal was I hosted an open house. So a lot of times when you have an experienced agent who has a lot of listings, they're not the ones holding the house open, right? They have other agents hold it open for two reasons. One, because maybe they're holding another house open already, and so they don't, they can't do it. And for two, most of the time, we're not selling the house at the open house. We're trying to gain clients at open houses because people who feel comfortable coming into an open house, they're usually unrepresented or something, and so you're trying to pick up those people. And so that's what I did. That was my next client was, hey, these people that I met at an open house, they didn't know I was brand new. They didn't ask me. I didn't tell them, and you know, I helped them. I helped them buy, right? And so,
Nuggets.
yeah.
Nuggets.
And so, the first 2 or 3 years, I mean, I just took everything. There's some realtors, even in my office, even today, that will not go to Dixie Highway. I promise you. Okay, they grew up on the East End. They live in the East End. They ain't gonna go to the Dixie Highway. That's like so far away to them. All right, I'll take that $120,000 buyer. I mean, you know what I mean? Like this is,
Is it because of the money that they would make off that is not as much as a house that would be on the east end of Louisville, Kentucky?
so the silly thing about real estate is, you know, the commissions are based on percentages, right? And so if you're selling a $600,000 house, you're going to make more money than if you're selling a $100,000 house, right? And so that's definitely part of it. But also, $100,000 house is usually harder to sell because it's maybe less desirable. It might not have the same updates or upgrades that a 600,000, more expensive house is going to have, right? The sellers may not have money to fix anything. The buyers may not have money to fix anything if there's anything wrong. Whereas if it's a more expensive house, generally speaking, the sellers might have money to do things, the buyer might have money to do things, and it's a nicer house. And so, a lot of times realtors will say, "Hey, it's not worth my time to do that," or they're just like, "Hey, I'm concentrating on a specific area." Some agents do concentrate on specific areas. I just wasn't one of them. I was like, it didn't matter if it was in Jefferson County or Shelby County, or I mean, I've even gone to Meade County or Henry County to help people out.
That kind of like segues into another question about like, since you said you sell houses in all areas, is there a difference that you see in the rural and the urban areas of selling a house?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, expectations are different in an urban area than they are than in like a rural area as far as even updates and upgrades. And a lot of times, let's say in Bullitt County or Oldham County, things move a lot slower too, as far as just the realtors who are there or the appraisers that are there. They're just slower, right? In Jefferson County in Louisville, we're like, no, we want it now, we want it today, and it's going to happen today. In Oldham County or Bullitt County, they might be like, yeah, they might, yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get around to it.
Eventually.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of I think that maybe the biggest difference. But as far as desirability, I've seen, especially since COVID, a lot of people who have desired to go outside of the county to just to have space, to have land. I've just heard so many people over the last 3 years just talk about how they want land now. I mean, nobody wanted it before, and everybody wants it. So I don't know what COVID struck into people to make them want that much space.
Is there anything new from last year that has changed in the, I guess, the market of realtoring? That's not word.
Yeah.
In the market of housing and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so we obviously had a huge, I say obviously, but I mean, like we've had a huge increase in interest rate, right? Like the mortgages. Last year at this very time, you could buy a house for about, 3.5 or 4% interest rate. Today it's going to be in the sixes or maybe seven, depending on credit score and things like that. So like the interest rate has really, really slowed down people from, being able to buy because if the interest rate is a lot higher, that just lowers their buying power because that same $300,000 house costs more money with a higher interest rate. And so that's kind of like the biggest change, biggest shift that has happened, in the last year. Also, like year over year, around this time last year, we had about 1,000 active listings in our market. Right now, we have about 1,800. So I mean, that's a pretty large increase in 1 year to have that much. And actually, most of that increase happened within about a 3 month time. And so that 3 months, everybody was freaking out. Every realtor was like, "Am I even going to have a job next year or whatever?" And they're just freaking out because all of a sudden, just the whole market came to a screeching halt when interest rates just kept climbing and kept going up.
Is there any advantages of not buying a home?
Yeah, I think it's in some scenarios. So the church that I go to, it is a very transient church. A lot of people come into town to go to seminary here, and then they plan to be here, 3 to 5 years, and then plan to go back. There's a lot of times it doesn't make sense for them to buy homes because of just the responsibility of a home. Water heater goes out, a roof, gets taken off by some wind or whatever. Like that's just extra things to worry about if you're only here for a short period of time. But if you plan to be in Louisville for a lifetime, just from a wealth standpoint, it is wise to purchase a home. You can just look at historical data of people who purchase homes versus people who rent, and there's that. But with all that being said, there's definitely a time for renting. There's definitely a place for renting, and I think that if it's a single older person and they're just like, hey, I don't want to deal with maintaining a house anymore or something. I mean that makes sense, and I think it's okay to do that. But just from again from a wealth standpoint, I think that purchasing a home. I mean, if you purchased a home in the last 6 or 7 years, um, your equity has increased so much in the last 6 or 7 years. People who bought houses in 2015 for 120 are selling them for 300, right? And some of them didn't do anything to their house. They lived in it for 6 or 7 years, right? And so, when you're not getting that with renting.
Is there any literature or other forms of like documents that you would suggest for someone who's looking to buy a house or someone who's in the market of selling houses?
I'm not sure there's any. I mean, so what I do offer up to people when I'm first meet with them is if they want a sample contract, because all Louisville realtors use the same exact contract. It's written by attorneys. It's a 7-page contract. It's like really complicated. There's a lot of contingencies in it. There's a lot of legalities in it. And so some people like to look at those things. Most people don't. Most people are just like, no, I don't even understand half of it anyways. I don't, that's why I hire the realtor, right? Is to understand those things. So I'll give those to people, but there's like, a lead-based paint, there's radon, there's, maybe things about asbestos, things like that we do have forms for. We do have things that we can, give people information about. Those are helpful, especially for first-time home buyers, just to know that, hey, like some of this stuff is out there and it does exist and it can be harmful to you. There's a book out there for, somebody who's looking to be a realtor. I've given it out because I think it's the most accurate depiction of what a realtor is, and it's called 21 Things I Wish My Broker Told Me. And the 5 people I gave it to, only one of them became a realtor after they read it. So it's like I said, it's pretty real on it, and it's almost maybe because I never want to like get somebody unexcited about getting into real estate, but also want them to have the true depiction, not the HGTV portion of it. Um, but yeah. I mean, as far as words of encouragement, I do encourage people to just kind of, put themselves out there and go for it when it comes to, real estate, because there's so many different types of realtors. I mean, there are introverts, there's extroverts, there's nerdy people, there's party people, you can do it in so many different ways. And I think that it's the most exciting career that I've ever had. It's the most fun thing I ever do. You can make a lot of money doing it. You can make a lot of friends doing it. I mean, it is really just a fun thing. And then, oh, by the way, if you just do the right thing and work hard, and you're going to be really fulfilled by helping people achieve their dreams, achieve their goals of home ownership or invest, being an investor, those type of things. And so that's what gets me up in the morning. That's what gets me excited. That's what gets me excited to even talk about it with you guys, is just thinking about, man, this is going to lead to maybe somebody else being able to buy a home, have somebody else being able to invest into their future.
And we appreciate everything that you've said for our viewers and for us. We appreciate you even coming on to Requesting Good Company.
Oh yeah.
And we'll leave your contact information for anybody in the chat or anybody on our subscribers that want to get in touch with you and either buy a house or get into being a realtor.
That's right.
And I appreciate you and everything you done for me and my family.
We requested good company, and good company was what we received.